What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin, but before I get into the charts I want to talk about this article here, some information that came out recently where we can see this article speaks about Donald Trump's plan to eliminate capital gains tax on US cryptocurrencies. Some highlights here being Trump's plan, which is proposing eliminating capital gains tax on US issued cryptocurrencies like XRP, ADA, and Algo, boosting US crypto, aims to make the US a global crypto hub, competing with Dubai. The UK and other countries are preparing to adjust their crypto regulations to stay competitive. And then down here, really kind of summing that up, kind of really painting the big picture. Donald Trump is reportedly considering a groundbreaking plan to eliminate capital gains taxes on US issued cryptocurrencies. If implemented, this could make profits from popular digital assets like Cardano, Algorand, Ripple, and Hedera tax-free for American investors. Sources close to Trump's transition team say that the proposal would require crypto issuing companies to be registered in the U.S. However, existing crypto businesses could relocate to the U.S. to take advantage of this new tax exemption now. As that's stated, this only applies to blockchain solutions projects that are based out of America that can be they can utilize this. So for example, if you're investing in the ones that it mentioned, like Cardano, Algorand, Ripple, and Hedera, because these are protocols, blockchain-based solutions based out of America, these would be tax-free. So every profit you make from any of the trades in these coins or others that are based out of America, you're not going to have to do any capital gains tax for them, which is absolutely fantastic to be seeing. Obviously, this isn't set in stone, and it's definitely not something that is absolutely going to happen. In general, a lot of times when it comes to political and presidential proposals, a lot of times they just don't happen, and that's for various reasons. But this would be absolutely amazing, as I've been speaking about capital gains tax in the last videos, especially concerning the last presidential, the one recently, presidential election for America, where had Kamala Harris won the presidency, would have proposed a capital gains tax, not seen in terms of how high the rates would be and how high they could reach depending upon how much money you're profiting, especially for people that are towards the upper echelons of the wealth hierarchy, would have to pay just asininely large tax rates on their profits. And there was also going to be a proposal for unrealized capital gains, which is just even more ridiculous than the already ridiculous capital gains tax in general. But enough on that. Here to get into the charts. The 6-hour chart here for Bitcoin, where we can see recently Bitcoin did make a tiny stride towards the upside here, towards around 94K. Currently, it is printing some potential bearish divergence. We look here at the RSI, very heavily steep, or saw a heavily steep decline here towards the downside, although the RSI currently sits lower than when it did. The price is at around 75K, and the RSI is lower than it was back then. Yet the price currently sits at 87.4, and so what we're seeing here is this bearish divergence, but we're also seeing a hidden bullish divergence as well. And as I've spoken about this many times in the past, a lot of times when you see bearish divergences coupled with hidden bullish divergences, this will occur within uptrends where you're seeing those said bearish divergences, but it is those hidden bullish divergences that keeps that uptrend alive and well. And on top of that, there is this resistance that I pointed out recently that was resistant. So far it seems to be hasn't been flipped in support just yet, but it's obviously Bitcoin broke out very much so above it, breaking out at around 77.2, then like I said, pushing up to 94K. There's this sizable vector zone at around 81K to 85K that also corresponds with this, what was resistance. So I mean, we could see something like this where Bitcoin comes down, flips this into support, builds up for a bit, and just has another large impulse towards the upside, pushing towards mid to late December. Or it could come down as low as around, there's just a larger vector zone here at around 69K to 75K. It would also line up with Bitcoin retesting this upper bound here, this resistance for the last 8 to 9 months that it has very solidly broken out of at this point. Very obviously, at least in my opinion, confirming that this is Bitcoin is entering into the last and final breakout of the current bull market. Here on this daily chart, what I want to go over are the simplified moving averages, which you can see here. And I went over this in a video a few weeks ago, maybe even a couple months ago, where I was talking about the death cross and the golden cross, which is characterized by the white SMA, so the 50, and then you see here back mid-September 2023 we saw the 50 go below the 200, the black SMA. This is a death cross, and then when it crosses back above, which happened towards the end of October, beginning of 2023, this is a golden cross. And basically what I was saying in that video was that death crosses are not intrinsically bearish in the sense that they're always bearish. Plenty of them. A lot of times it's been the third death cross that you see within a phase or cycle of Bitcoin that you'll have a death cross that actually ends up being very, very bullish. And the other similarities that is seen here are these SMAs on top of the 50 going below the 200 here, which happened this time around recently, where we see this sideways consolidation here for Bitcoin, then we see this consolidation here for Bitcoin. You can see that the 50 crossed below 200, then crossed back above, and then we had this impulse here, and then we saw the same thing where the 50 went below 200 around mid-August of this year, then passing back above around the end of October, beginning of November, just as it did in 2023, again, doing this in 2024, and right now we're breaking out above it, looking very similar to the same period of time just a year ago. And on top of this, another thing that I mentioned was the 50 going below the 100. You can see right here, June, and then July, and then September, and then around October, where we see these four crosses, two above and two below, where we see the 50 and the 100 intermingling with each other. And that same exact thing was seen right here, where we see one cross in May, second cross in around June, we see the third in around July, and then we see the fourth all the way in October. Really just demonstrating the exact same performance overall during both of these periods. It happened to be a 9-month-long consolidation. And then looking here at this horizontal line on the RSI, sitting at the value of around 68, looking at that October, late October, early November 2023, the RSI was hitting this value as we see the price here breaking out to 35K. And then if we go to November, same time frame, just a year later, we're seeing also here the RSI is hitting that same horizontal level, and we see the price here also, as I denoted, breaking above the very crucial resistance that needs to be broken. And ultimately what this is pointing to, upon the many other confluential performance, and not only the price but other indicators that I've gone on in past videos, where we see here impulse 1 for Bitcoin, impulse 2 for Bitcoin, and we're beating impulse 3, what I think is the final impulse of the current bull market, all structurally basically doing the same thing, but they're taking longer to play out, and the gains are being increased by some factor. And ultimately what this is pointing to is where you can see, given these similarities between here and here, basically what we could very likely end up seeing is Bitcoin kind of waver upwards, something along this, probably leading, I don't know if it would be maybe that late, I would have to say sometime like early January, maybe something roughly like this, where we'll see Bitcoin kind of sit here and kind of just actually move this down, something more along these lines, probably look something closer to like this, where we could see Bitcoin start to lose a little bit of the volatility, and it starts just to waver upwards, similar to like a flag kind of wavering up in the wind, just ever so gradually stair-stepping its way towards at highest around 130K, as I've been saying. I think the next move, as Bitcoin continues to move up from here, will be somewhere in between 100 to 130K, and then we'll see retracement down to maybe like 85, 90K, maybe a tad bit lower, but I think that range roughly will be respected. Looking here at this 2-day chart, we'll see the same thing being said, just obviously on a higher time frame, where you can see on the price, we had this 9-month approximate consolidation sideways for Bitcoin. We've seen this again, 9-month approximate consolidation. They're basically right on the precisely the same as each other in terms of how long we've seen this correction. And clearly this first one's horizontal, this one's more of a broadening, descending wedge, as I've been going over. But if we look here, the breakout of the RSI trend here, the RSI then shot straight up to this purple trend at around 78. This then corresponded with the price going above 30 to around 35K. And then this is when the gradual wavering price action began. If we fast forward to now, like I said, same time, just a year later, we're seeing Bitcoin break the resistance on the price, then shooting up on the RSI up to 78. And also on top of that, we're printing high volume white vector candles here, and just as prior during the same time last year. So again, we see on the daily and the 2 daily the same thing. If we move into the 4-day, we see the same thing here as well, and I'll get to that here in a moment, but there's many things here on this chart. Very simple, although very important. We see this ascending zone right here that corresponds to the bear market low back here, 15-16K, November, December 2022. Bitcoin then, as you can see, moves up here, finds support here, moves up once more, rejection. We see support again in the trend zone, and then see another rejection at the horizontal right here. Bitcoin then goes below the trend zone, finds support here again along the horizontal right here, then moves back up, kind of just trades around this zone here as you can see, but then sees rejection, rejection. Again, very similar, basically the same thing as Bitcoin saw back here this first time around, which then led into support within the trend zone. And then we see something very similar right here where it did deviate a little bit below the trend zone, but ultimately it found support very closely to it. So again, we see support here. Bitcoin then shoots up to 74K. We see rejection, 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 and then right here where we see these 3 bottoms, Bitcoin started to print bullish divergences here on the RSIs as I've gone over in previous videos. This is also synonymous to this point right here. These 2 points are structurally speaking the same, and we're seeing exactly what happened this first time around, where we see Bitcoin find support, volatility ramps up, high volume white vector candles leads right into the lower trend line of this trend zone, which is basically acting as a median of this overall bull market uptrend. And we're seeing the same thing happen here. Bitcoin finds support right here. The price then moves up, high volume vector candles, volatility is ramping up. Now we're sitting right along the lower trend of this zone, just as it was back in end October, November, beginning of November 2023. Again, we're just a year later, saying the exact same thing. Also, the conclusion of this would to be the Bitcoin's going to just gradually waver upwards. So again, daily, 2-day, 4-day, saying the same thing. And then if we move into this 4-day chart, before I get into the weekly, also conveying the same sentiment. As I went over this many videos ago, you'll see in each of the impulses that have characterized this bull market so far. So impulse 1 here, impulse 2, and then what I believe here is going to be impulse 3. What we're seeing is each and every single time, March to April 2023, impulse 1 saw the peak here, impulse 2, March to April 2024 saw the peak here. So fast forward to March to April 2025, maybe it happens about a month beforehand, maybe it happens about a month afterwards. Like I was saying in the past video, I think it's possible that we see it extend towards maybe even the end of June, which still ultimately is roughly, it's respecting, you know, the 4-month range of March, April, May, June. So I think this is quite likely to happen, and this will just further validate the, you know, highly confluential characteristics of this bull market that we've seen so far, where each of these impulses look the same and they have they seem to be doubling in percentage gains towards the upside, which is why I think Bitcoin is likely to go somewhere to approximately 200K, give or take 30K for the upcoming all-time high. If we look here down at the RSI, you can see that the RSI is at a level currently right now, which is 66, which corresponds to when Bitcoin was hitting around 50K last time around, whereas Bitcoin right now is sitting at around 90K. As I said, this could be signaling some short-term healthy correction. On this 4-day chart, as I mentioned in the last video, we have not seen a retest of this horizontal resistance. So we could see, like I was talking about on the 6-hour, Bitcoin come down to somewhere approximately around 70K, because none of these three vector candles right here have been reclaimed whatsoever on the high time frames. But this also, you can see that these three right here were not recovered during the second impulse of this current bull market. So there's also reason to believe that these three vector candles right here during the third impulse won't be recovered as well. But I just want to point that out because that's definitely a real possibility for the rest of this year. If you look here at this weekly chart, this is the chart that further affirms what I was showing on the daily, the 2-day, and the 4-day. If we look down here at the RSI, you can see that the RSI is currently sitting at around 82. If we go back to the second impulse, it was sitting also at 82, right at the exact same period of time. That was pointing out on the daily, 2-day, and 4-day, where Bitcoin is just breaking the prior resistance. As you can see, horizontal here, and then it began this, the volatility died down a bit, but still Bitcoin was in an impulse, and it was in an uptrend. It just gradually built its way towards basically from 35K all the way up to around 45 to 48K from around beginning of November to beginning of January. So we could see a similar time frame, although right now I think it might deviate in terms of happening or a little bit later, or having a lag effect this time around, because I do think this impulse is going to be extended and will take a little bit more time to play out, because that's been the nature in terms of the comparison between impulse 1 back here and impulse 2 here in this bull market. If we look here at this weekly chart, we'll also see the same thing. If we look here at the RSI, currently sits at 72. It's also right at the same area that Bitcoin was at when it was breaking the prior resistance, leading into impulse 2. So again, another weekly chart. This is using the Heikin-Ashi candles as well, so this does change the data. So even the Heikin-Ashis, or my bad rather, these are the traditional candlestick patterns, and then these on this weekly are the Heikin-Ashis, and so these are going to print different data, and they're still also painting the same picture as well. Looking here at this 3-week chart, this is also another chart, which I went over this in the last video, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this, but this is also saying the same thing as the daily, 2-day, 4-day, and the weekly, where we see, if we look here at the RSI, it's encroaching the green Fibonacci level, which the last time Bitcoin did this was as it was breaking this resistance leading into the second impulse, and then began that gradual stair step towards the upside, which again just further affirms that I think, at least most likely, that's what we're going to see Bitcoin do, gradually stair step, towards around 115K, give or take, like, maybe 5-10K or so, probably no earlier than mid-December, and maybe as late as mid to late January of next year is when we could be seeing that. And then lastly here for this 6-month chart, I just want to pull this back up again because it is just so important, because this is one of the best things that I've found, and I found this recently. Just to show is going all the way back to basically the beginning of Bitcoin. You can see each and every single time breaking these horizontal resistances of these all-time highs. A year goes by, all-time high. Then we see here, this resistance is broken. A year goes by, the all-time high is set. Same thing here. Going all the way to now, where we could potentially be seeing the same thing happen again, as it's happened ever since Bitcoin came out, which is why I've been saying that I think that right now, at least, obviously as more and more data is printed, this could change, in my opinion, could change. But for right now, I think that it is more likely than not that we will see Bitcoin top out and set its upcoming all-time high to conclude phase 1 of cycle 3 within the first half of next year, where I think that all-time high will line up and fall within the range more of March, April, May to June, rather than like maybe January, February of next year. Like I said, somewhere around 200K, give or take $30,000 or so. And maybe it even goes a little bit higher. There's definitely that possibility as well, but I definitely think approximately 200K with that deviation I have given is very reasonable for the upcoming all-time high for Bitcoin. But That was all that I wanted to go over and talk about in this video. So as always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Now won't die. See you forever, start to